Did you catch in? They just told me that we're leaving for some. Sorry.
Thank you all for being here. My apologies for the delay. We have some people who have been very, very affected by what occurred on the street. I was in the back consulting with them, and it took a minute. So thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. We are here today to discuss a collaborative community response to Monday's mass shooting here in the King Sessing community. This breaks down into several parts, but the essence of it is this. This is really not my time to talk and talk and talk. This is the time for a lot of other people who are affected by what occurred and who work to try to make it better now as much as they can and to try to make it better in the future. This is their opportunity to talk, and it's their opportunity for the public to understand that an entire community does come together despite the horrific trauma of this nightmarish mass shooting. Someone back there, while we were getting ready, said the bullets don't care, but we do. I'd say that's about right. The bullets don't care, but we do. And I know the rest of this city does, and I know the rest of this country does. I want to identify some of the good people who are here today, many of whom will be speaking. We have ADA Joanne Pescator, who is the chief of the DAO's Homicide and Non-Fatal Shooting Unit. We have the prosecutor specifically assigned to this case and assigned to the case from the beginning, and that is ADA Bob Wainwright of the DAO's Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit. We have with us the Reverend Myra Maxwell, Director of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division, who has done incredible work with her team to try to reach out to so many different victims, survivors, co-survivors, and families affected by this tragedy. Reverend Maxwell is here with Shakina DeShazer, who is the Administrative Manager of the DAO's CARES Unit. Now, the CARES Unit is the subpart of the Victim Witness Unit in the DA's office that is specifically tasked with working intensively with the families of homicide victims in the first 45 days. Just imagine for a second what it's like when you can't afford the funeral, what it's like when you feel that you're endangered, what it's like when all that grief is crushing you and causing health problems in your family. Just imagine what it's like to try to deal with all the immediate logistics and simultaneously try to find a way in the future to address your own trauma. Well, that's the kind of work that is done by Reverend Maxwell, Shakina DeShazer, and we also have Shalyn Harris, who is a victim witness coordinator specifically working in our Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit and specifically working on this particular case. Anthony Brown. Aunt Brown is here for ABRO, that's A-B-R-O, which is an anti-gun violence organization that works in schools. As you may know, a lot of juveniles have been affected very directly and indirectly by this, and we appreciate his work, appreciate his being here. We have several members of the DAO's LGBTQ plus liaison group, some of whom are also victim witness coordinators, and they include Kelly Burkhart, who is a victim witness coordinator in the DA's office. In addition to filling this role, we have Asa Khalif. Mr. Khalif, I mean, frankly, I shouldn't have to introduce him. He should be so well known to many of you for his remarkable work as an activist and in many other ways. We also have the wonderful Sappho Fulton and Micah Thomas here on behalf of that group. Our Sheriff, Rochelle Bilal, is here. Senator Sharif Street of PA Senate District 3, who has done so much with his colleagues in the Senate to try to address issues of gun violence and issues of prevention around gun violence, is here. We have Dr. Zaf Qasim, that's Z-A-F, next name Qasim, Q-A-S-I-M, who is a medical doctor and emergency physician from Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. He is here with registered nurse Stephanie Horton, also works in emergency at Penn Presbyterian Medical Center, and both of these individuals have come here to tell you what it was like to treat many of the injured in the emergency room on the night that occurred, and to speak more generally about the reality that their everyday situation is gun violence victims coming in for years. Dr. Qasim has been doing this work at Penn Presbyterian for 8 years, but he has been a doctor for 22 years. We have with us Vofi Jabatet, who is the executive director of ACANA, that's A-C-A-N-A. ACANA is the Africa Cultural Alliance of North America. The offices of ACANA are very close to where this incident occurred, and Vofi is very well known. Some call him the mayor up here, the mayor of that neighborhood anyway. Vofi is very well known and played an important role here in assisting the DA's office in reference to one of the homicide victims, who is the son of an immigrant from Africa. He is present. We have Reverend W. Lonnie Herndon, senior pastor of the Church of Christian Compassion, who has collaborated with us many times, and among other things, is providing assistance to one of the families to deal with one of the most traumatic aspects of the aftermath of the shooting. We have Imam Kenneth Nurdin of the Philadelphia Masjid, whose anti-gun violence work is constant. And we have the Reverend Dr. Sean James, senior pastor here at the Salt and Light Church, which is our host. In the back at this time, we also have Josephine Wama, and we have Jasmine Wama, who are the two sisters of one of the homicide victims. If they are able, they will be speaking today. And if they are not able, you will understand the reality of what they're up against. So let me just say a couple words, because it really should only be a couple words before we hear more from community. As many of you are aware, there were a lot of people who came to the scene of this crime yesterday within several hours of the shooting itself. My office at that time had fully deployed our CARES team, our victim witness coordinators team, who immediately got in contact with the families of all of the victims of this shooting, with the exception of the one young man who had not been identified at the time. As soon as he was identified, they kicked into gear to address that. While we were out at the scene yesterday, we were accompanied by Leader Joanna McClinton, who is the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House, Representative Jordan Harris, who is essentially her right hand, the number 2 in the Pennsylvania House for the Democrats. Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson was there. Councilmember Jamie Gauthier was there by phone. She was actually a couple thousand miles away, but wanted to know everything that was going on, and we were in close contact. Vofi Jabata of ACANA was there as well. Reverend G. Lamar Stewart was there as well. And we were all struck by many things, but just one of those things was the bicycle, which is still there. I don't know if you saw it, but right at the corner where this all went down yesterday, 24 hours ago, actually 28 hours ago, there was a small bicycle, looked like a child's bicycle, which was sitting on that corner. And we were informed by some people who were there that that bicycle was dropped by someone, I presume a child, during the shooting. Hours later, nobody had touched it. Nice little bike. Hours later, nobody had touched it, as if they all felt they couldn't, that it was a memorial. It was some kind of a silent memorial. Well, it's there now. It's been moved a few feet. Maybe somebody came along, some child came along and moved it, and somebody else told them to put it back. But it's there now. And I think that fact, the desolation on those streets, the absence of cars, the absence of people, the curtains closed, the doors locked in that neighborhood, and also the comments from neighbors, the ones who did come out, about how close they themselves came to being shot and killed. Thank goodness I didn't go get that bag out of my trunk right then, because those are the kinds of things that we heard. Obviously, this office is 100% committed to the vigorous prosecution of this mass killer. And we will do justice in court with this case. But it's not my time to keep talking. It's my time to call forward some people who have, in my opinion, very important things to say. It is my pleasure, my honor first, to call forward Zaf Qasim, MD, an emergency physician from Penn Presbyterian, as well as registered nurse Stephanie Horton, to speak as much as they wish and as little as they wish about their experience and their thoughts about this incident.
Thank you, DA Krasner. My name is Zach Qasim. I am an emergency room physician and an ICU physician at Penn Presbyterian, and I'm here with my colleague Stephanie Horton, who's a registered nurse also in the emergency room at Penn Presbyterian. And certainly would like to start to thank the DA for the invitation to speak today. Also, our deepest condolences to everybody who was affected by the tragedy that happened on Monday night. The families in particular. Wanted to also thank the Philadelphia police officers who, whilst taking fire, were rapidly able to get the victims of this insanity that happened on Monday to Penn Presby in a very timely fashion. And we're also able to limit the additional loss of life on the scene by apprehending the suspect very quickly. And most importantly, I think I'd like to thank my colleagues who I'm representing here today, and Stephanie as well, who came together on that night with very little notice and were able to effectively and rapidly provide life-saving care to the victims who arrived. And some of the details are already made public to the press. I won't go into any further details on any specific patient. You know, this is really kind of a tragedy that we're here. We, as a team at Penn Presby, deal with gun violence not just on Monday night, but on an everyday basis. Especially over the last few years, we've seen a huge escalation in the amount of gun violence that we're seeing. It's not uncommon to see multiple victims who come in. Despite that, what happened on Monday was perhaps on a scale far above what we've seen before. From the degree of injury that we saw, from the style of weapon that was used, and the amount of damage. And remember, this isn't something that just affects the victims. As I said to the DA, the bullets really don't care. They don't care what faith you are, what party you belong to. They cause damage, not only to the victims, but to the families who we then have to go to talk to in the family rooms, and the wider community, as you saw, where the streets are now empty because people are scared to go out in the street. Let me hand it over to Nurse Horton.
I just would like to echo what Dr. Qasim said about the families. It's just really hard to comfort them, and it really takes a toll on my colleagues. And to go through this, like Dr. Qasim said, very frequently, it just doesn't get any easier.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the work you do. And thank you for highlighting what the police went through with this horrifying incident where they were the ones scooping up victims with no cover while shots were ringing out, and then working all night, and then coming back with no sleep or almost no sleep the next day. It is my pleasure now to call up Reverend Myra Maxwell, Director of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division, with her team. And that includes Shakina DeShazor. I think Charlene Harris may actually be occupied. Oh, Charlene Harris is available? Okay. And Charlene Harris, if she is available as well.
Thank you, DA Krasner. First, I'd like to say on behalf of our Victim Support Services Division, we'd like to also offer our condolences to the family members who tragically had their loved ones taken from them through this incident, as well as those who are survivors of this horrible event that happened to us. I want to just kind of move past what Dr. Kasem said, that they're working at the hospital, but our CARES unit is actually following up in the immediate aftermath of a homicide tragedy. So our teams are activated by our manager, who's not up here with me, but she is in the audience. They're activated, and once they're activated, they are deployed to either the hospital or to the location where the tragedy occurred. Our team was able to pull two teams together to go out to speak with these families to make sure that they are offered services immediately in the aftermath of this homicide death. Unfortunately, we have to do this quite a bit here in the city of Philadelphia, and we hope that we won't have to do that much. So we're looking one day that you all can put us out of business. However, in the immediate aftermath, there are so many issues that families have to deal with. We're there to not just offer the immediate support, but to make sure we help them to navigate the numerous systems that they have to navigate. That could be assisting with funeral expenses. It could be helping them to obtain counseling support or any other types of services. Because once there's a loss, there are many people impacted, as we've heard here already. So we have to consider there are children involved, there are other family members involved, there are neighbors involved, and the community. And our office is offering what I like to call it a continuum of support, because not only is our CARES unit out to be deployed in the immediate aftermath, but if there's an arrest in the case, our homicide victim witness coordinators, as well as our non-fatal shooting coordinators, are there to support the family through the criminal justice process. There's also another component because we also work with community-based providers. So not only are we working alongside of our community-based providers, but we're also making certain that the community is cared for. Because in the aftermath of a tragedy such as this or any incident, the community is absolutely impacted. So the trauma is going from not just the family to the community, even to those who are providing the service. We are impacted by this as well. So our continuum of services, again, reaches out to not just the immediate family, but also to those people who are impacted in the community, as well as those who are serving. So we do have information on some of the other organizations, including our network of neighbors who provide trauma support to the community. So we have reached out to these organizations already to make sure that we are touching every single aspect of this particular traumatic event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to call forward Asa Khalif to say a couple words on behalf of a whole team who are here, which is the DAO's LGBTQ plus advisory committee. As wonderful as his speaking is, it should not be necessary, but you know, there are some people for whom hate is a full-time job, and if they can stay away from the facts and talk about nonsense, that's what they're going to do. We will have more to say about this if there's any need to say it, but there really shouldn't be. Nevertheless, I call forward Asa Khalif.
Thank you very much, Mr. District Attorney. We are members of the District Attorney's LGBTQIA Advisory Committee. We have done wonderful work within our community and educating the District Attorney's Office and connecting them with our community is the first that has ever been done in the District Attorney's Office, and we are very proud of the success that we've had moving forward. I'm not going to take a lot of time because we have some pressing issues here. First and foremost, we'd like to give our deepest condolences to the victim's family. We want to lift the victims up in our thoughts and honor them. Even though they died in a tragic way, their lives mattered. And the impact of the community. This is a community that we belong to. We used to live, some of us lived in this community before we moved to other communities in Philadelphia. It has impacted us. We have family members. So it's a triple effect. It just doesn't stop with the shooter being arrested. There is a triple down effect, and it affects all of us as a community and keep us all as a city in our prayers. I want to discuss very briefly, because there is a nasty, violent, in terms of verbal and written words, spewed by the conservative press regarding the shooter. There are certain pictures that are circulating. Some of you may be aware of those pictures. Have the shooter in one picture as male, and other pictures dressed in female attire or female outfits. They have used those pictures to attack trans people, and particularly trans women of color, which are extremely vulnerable to violence in our community. I want to set the record straight, because language is extremely important when we're talking about anything dealing with violence in trans community. The suspect or the shooter has not identified themselves as trans. They have only identified themselves as male. And that's the language that will be used until further developments, if they change that type of language. But the language that is spewed out by the conservative press is violent and is dangerous, and is targeting trans women of color. It's rallying the community to be violent. And we're better than that. We're better than that. We have our trans women and our trans men living in these communities, working, thriving in the communities. They are not killers. They are the most vulnerable to violence. They want to live their lives, and they have every right to do so. And we will not allow conservative bigots to use that type of language to attack trans people. This is about someone who used violence to hurt and harm our city and our community. And I'm sure they will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But we will not allow trans women, and trans women in particularly trans women of color, to be the scapegoat for bigots. There is no room for that. We will not allow it. Thank you.
I want to make sure to point out that accompanying Mr. Khalif were Sappho Fulton, dressed in white. We also had Kelly Burkhart, who works in the DA's office, and we had Micah Thomas, who was standing to your right, my left. The next group I'm honored to call up are the Reverend Dr. Sean James, senior pastor here at the Salt and Light Church, our host, Reverend W. Lonnie Herndon, senior pastor at the Church of Christian Compassion, and Imam Kenneth Nuruddin, the resident imam at the Philadelphia Masjid.
Southwest Philadelphia is a community of great pride. From a very popular Facebook group called I Grew Up in Southwest Philadelphia, to Tyrone Garland, who you'll remember one Sweet 16 took LaSalle to the Sweet 16 with a shot that was called the Southwest Philly Floater. People who live, work, and worship in Southwest Philly take great pride in this section of the city. And so you can imagine the pain that exists in this neighborhood right now. A neighborhood that you might think is accustomed to gun violence, but the fact of the matter is this is something different. What is not different, however, is the response of the neighbors and the friends and the clergy, women and men of this community in this situation. And so I want to invite everyone this evening back here to Salt and Light. We will have our doors open the rest of the day, but tonight we'll be gathering at 7 p.m. for an interfaith citywide prayer vigil. We invite you all to come and to spend some time with us as we lament over this situation, as we gather around one another, and as we offer prayers. Let me also say this. We've been blessed at this church to have a robust mental health ministry. We have several individuals who are part of our staff who are either spiritual directors or a licensed therapist. And that is a ministry that is at no cost to anyone. You do not have to be a member of the church. And so if anyone finds themselves in a position right now where you need to talk to somebody, and we know this is an issue in the city of Philadelphia right now, I think the real issue that we are often missing in this situation is not the identity of the shooter, but rather the issues of mental health that exist in our city and how difficult it is for individuals to find the help that they need right now. And so if you or someone you love or a child that is in your care needs to talk to someone right now, The doors of the church are open, and we would love for you to bring that person by here that we can minister to them.
Again, we are gathered under circumstances which are very acute. And when we have acute problems, all labels are put aside because humans are involved. And we see the response of the first responders, whether they're in law enforcement, criminal justice, or the health professionals. The job that they do is second to none, and it's very thorough. But I would like to speak to the community and remind us we are the second responders, meaning we have to come in and deal with the chronic conditions. So just as the first responders do their job well, they can only respond to acute issues. The chronic condition is something that all of us have to respond to, and we have to commit ourselves and dedicate our efforts in that capacity. Thank you.
Again, our thoughts and prayers go towards the families affected by this terrible tragedy. I want to thank the DA's office always for having their finger on the pulse of bringing faith leaders and community leaders together to help our community heal. There's a great quote that says, "We do not heal in isolation, we heal in community." And tonight, join us at 7 p.m. as we spend some time walking this neighborhood, praying for this neighborhood, and helping this community to heal. Thank you.
That was really concise for clergy. I'm very, very impressed.
You got the right one.
And thank you for that. It is, you know, lawyers say they're going to write a brief, but it's never brief. It's the same idea. Anyway, it is now my pleasure to call forward Vofi Jabatet, who is the Executive Director of ACANA, A-C-A-N-A, that is the African Cultural Alliance of North America. Mr. Jabatet.
Thank you, Larry Krasner, or DA. And I first of all want to extend our appreciation and gratitude to the 12 police district and the police officers that immediately put their own lives at stake to bring this situation under control immediately. We were here on Sunday and with Jordan Harris, our district representative, and Joanna McClinton. Well, I want to leave this platform with one message, and that is what happened in Southwest Philadelphia, 56 and Chester, is not isolated to 56 and Chester. It's a national issue. For people to think that we will be scared to live our life and work on 56 and Chester or Chester Avenue, tell those who shoot randomly, tell those people who come after people who don't harm them but they want to harm others, that we will not be afraid. We will continue to build Southwest Philadelphia based on those models that all of us have accepted. I want to make sure that I am not only speaking for the African and Caribbean immigrants that live in here, but for all of the folks that call Southwest Philadelphia their home. We speak with one voice. We are planning for to unify our community. We have Aracana, we have therapeutic services across the road. We have therapeutic services. I also speaking on behalf of the Wama family, and I've been working with them since then. And we will be, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we will be, based on the DA instruction, we will be meeting as a community to structure what is it that we'll do to heal our community quickly. And I just want to say we're not afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Jabatet. It is now my pleasure to introduce two of Philadelphia's greatest defenders when it comes to public safety, when it comes to the prevention of crime, and also tip my hat to a couple who could not be here today. We have with us Rochelle Bilal, our sheriff. We also have Senator Sharif Street. I don't think I don't even want to compare them. I don't think there's anybody who's really done more to try to see what we could do at both the local and statewide level to improve Philadelphia's situation. I do want to mention Senator Vince Hughes, who could not be here today, but has played such a vital role, and Senator Nikhil Saval, who wanted to be here, but is doing what any good parent does, which is making sure that his family is safe and sound and well cared for. I also want to tip my hat to our upstate brother in the Senate, and that is Senator Costa. There's many others I could recognize, but these are all people who work all day, every day, to try to improve things for Philadelphia, both in terms of enforcement and prevention. As you may know, there has been a community out there very vested in the prevention of crime. They have, among other things, been interested in an idea that was first published in the Inquirer, or at least the basis for it came in the Inquirer, referred to as 57 blocks. I don't know exactly what these two leaders are going to tell us, but I know it's going to be important, and therefore I call forward Sheriff Bilal and Senator Street.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office, we give our sincere condolences to the families, the victims of this senseless mass murder. With that, we are even more concerned over disturbing messages found on the assailant's social media page. Let me congratulate those Philadelphia police officers and the Philadelphia Department, my colleagues, who did a superb job in making sure that assailtant was captured. We don't have to put a warrant out for that one. That one's in custody. And I want to thank them for the work that they've done. Let us use this opportunity to re-examine social media posts. We may see that mentions harming someone or suggest extreme activities. If you know this person or see a post that raises a red flag, you have to speak up and call the authorities immediately. This is our business, and we can't afford to stay silent. They are letting people know what they are about to do, and that is on all of us to not sit silent when you see these type of posters that is threatening to harm us, harm our communities, harm our children, harm somebody in society. We have to take a part in this. As the investigation continues, we ask for the community's assistance to call and report suspicious activity, unlawful gun purchase, and anything that poses a threat to you and your family. We need your help.
Thank you, Sheriff, District Attorney, all those who've worked on this. 2 years ago on this day, on July 5th, 2021, I was standing here because there had been a mass shooting on July 4th, 2021, in which Saudin Mahmoud Lala, our nephew, was killed. Standing here, full of cameras, shooting on 60th Street, not on 58th, 2 blocks away. My wife was burst into tears, and for the first time ever, I burst into tears on camera. Since then, the Pennsylvania General Assembly has failed to enact responsible gun laws. You can still buy an AR-15, which was used in countless murders over and over again. We still haven't passed background checks. The House passed it, but my colleagues, Republican colleagues, let's be clear, in the Senate still have not called that to a vote. The reporting of lost and stolen handguns still is not available, which only targets straw purchasers, does nothing to individual. Red flag laws, safe storage, I could go on.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And the only thing that could have made sitting there and looking at this worse was then I watched the mayor of Baltimore talk about the fact that there was a mass shooting there and that almost all of the guns used in mass shootings in Baltimore are purchased out of state. And I guess what? A significant portion of those were also purchased in Pennsylvania. And I realized our failings in the General Assembly are probably not just responsible for mass shootings here in Philadelphia and throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but also responsible for shootings in all the states around us that have stricter gun laws. And what have we done recently? But the one thing that we have started to do was fund violence prevention groups, something that has in a very modest way started to erode the crime prevention, what's going on. And we passed a budget out of the Senate that cut violence prevention dollars $65 million below what the governor proposed and what we did last year. It is an absolute atrocity. The budget process isn't done in Harrisburg, and I'm saying this as a family member of someone who died, who can understand what folks are going on. It is an absolute outrage that we would be advancing a budget that cuts violence prevention dollars while we do nothing about the flow of illegal guns, while mass shootings continue to move forward. I said when I stood in front of you, when it was my family member that was laying dead, among others, was not the only person killed that day, unfortunately. I said, we're standing in the church, people always offer their thoughts and prayers. The book of James says, faith without works are dead. And to my colleagues in the General Assembly and in Congress who want to offer faith and prayers to the victims of families and do nothing about the problem, to you I say your faith is dead if you will not do the work to deal with the issues. The victims of families want to see us do something, not just give empty promises and fake prayers.
Thank you so much, Sheriff, and thank you for your passionate words, Senator Street. It is now my opportunity and pleasure to call up ADA Joanne Pescator, the Chief of the Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit, who supervises ADA Bob Wainwright, the prosecutor who has had this case from the beginning, and I expect will have this case until the end. They will be providing specific information about the case. If you have any questions, please hold them. We are going to make sure that you all have an opportunity to ask questions when we get to the question and answer phase. There will be a couple speakers speaking together after ADA Pescator and Bob Wainwright, so I appreciate your patience.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Wainwright. I'm the Assistant District Attorney assigned to the case.
Good afternoon, Joanne Pescator. I am the Chief of the Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office.
And I just want to start off by stating what others before me have said. My condolences go out to the families of the 5 murder victims. Lasheed Merritt, who was 20, Daimir Stanton, who was 29, Ralph Morales, who was 59, Dejon Brown, who was only 15, and Joseph Wama Jr., who was 31. I also like to send my condolences to the family members who were hurt and survived. Ms. Brown, Octavia Brown, who was driving in a car with 3 of her children. She suffered a serious injury to her eye from glass. Her twin boys in the back seat, one of them suffered injury from the glass, and the other suffered gunshot wounds to his leg. And her 10-year-old daughter, who was not struck, thankfully, but was in the passenger seat next to her, as well as the surviving complainant, the one person who was struck by bullets, who was not in that car, who survived, who was only 13 years old. I'll just, the defendant in this case had an AR-15 assault rifle, and as it's been said already, I mean, the police work on this case was just absolutely incredible from the very beginning. The fact that they cornered this defendant before he could take more lives is absolutely remarkable and showed incredible bravery by the police officers. And then I got a phone call from ADA Pescator, my boss, shortly after the incident, saying that this was going to be coming down the pipeline and to just be ready. And then I got a phone call later that night, after midnight, by Detective Scally, who's not the assigned, but Detective Scally is an amazing detective in Philadelphia, and he was drafting the search warrants both for the defendant's home and also the home of the Joseph Wama, who had been found after the other 4 decedents had been already found and the scene had been processed. And then the assigned detective, Detective Orlando Ortiz, who I've had the fortune of working with before, who's an amazing detective as well. And I just am thankful that we've got such great detectives and police in this city.
All right, thank you very much. Obviously, both ADA Wainwright and ADA Pescator will be available for questions. They may not be able to answer all of them, but they will certainly be able to answer some of those questions. Finally, we have with us to speak together Josephine Wama and Jasmine Wama, who are the sisters of Joseph Wama, one of the murder victims in this case. Josephine is the twin sister of Joseph Wama, and Jasmine is also their sister. I would ask you, please, to understand the sensitivity of the situation and the respect that is something I know you will all convey in dealing with them. Josephine Wama and Jasmine Wama.
So, I just honestly still can't believe that he's gone.
Can you stand a little closer to the mic so I can get you?
Hold my hand, please. I still can't believe that my brother is gone, and I just don't understand why this happened. Like, he was a kind soul. He was nice to everyone. He was good to everyone. He got on me about having grace with people. And one thing I really love and admire about him, he had a great sense of humor. And I'm just waiting for him to say, hey, this is a prank. But it's just like, it's hard to wake up from this. I don't understand how someone can just do that to my brother. Like, I really love him. And the fact that you did this to us, like, for your own agenda, for your own reason, it's just really pissing me off. It's really pissing me off, and I'm going to miss him a lot. He taught me a lot about myself. He was like a second father to me. I never wanted to tell anyone that, but he was like a second father to me. He was just getting on me about things I need to do, plans. He's like, you got to plan stuff and then just do it. So he was gorgeous inside and out. I'm going to miss that beautiful smile. I really am. He had the best hugs.
And he took care of his family.
He had the worst cooking. He tried his best, okay, but he put his passion into it. And I just feel like with his cooking, we still ate it because he tried, and it's just like he couldn't cook, but he could sketch his butt off. He can like draw you right now all in this room with just a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and just draw every detail of your face. Like, it's just, he was very, very artistic, okay? When I say a lot of these famous painters, designers, he will be just past Van Gogh, I'm sorry.
I got nothing on my brother.
Like, I'm gonna find his artwork and just share it to the world for him on his behalf. And I know that he would want me to do that, so I'm gonna find his artwork, all his talents and gifts, and I'm gonna share it to the world. I wanna make sure that I tribute it just to him, because if you see his sketches and everything, like, there's nobody else that can like draw him. And it was like so detail oriented, it was so passionate, it was so rooted and down to earth that it was just spiritual. You could feel all the energy, everything that he's saying in his body, you could feel it on top of the canvas. That's how deep it was. Not just like, oh, I want to be an artist. Like, you could feel this man's emotions in every stroke of the paintbrush that he puts on the canvas. Like,
and he loved Creed. He loved each and every 1, 2, and 3. That was his favorite movies.
Yeah, he was obsessed with Creed. Like,
Pictures,
he was an actor in Creed too. He's one of the extra actors, and it's just like, he even drew Michael B. Jordan. He drew him so well, and my Aunt Gloria, she came in the room and she cried because she felt that emotion that he felt when he painted that canvas. Like, that's a true artist right there. He was very smart. He had a degree in psychology from Chestnut Hill College. Like, he was just amazing. Like, a jerk sometimes to me. I'm waiting for him to get on my nerves. Like, I'm just not, like, here right now. Like, I'm just not understanding that he's gone. I'm just really pissed off. Like, why did you have to do this to my brother? You took him away. You took an angel away from us.
Why didn't you take yourself away?
Jasmine, just...
Why don't you just kill your fucking self?
I had a nervous breakdown this morning.
You should have shot yourself.
Jasmine, just try to calm down. I know it's hard. We
I had
know.
nothing but anger. It's nothing but anger. I'm sorry. You killed the wrong person. You killed the wrong man.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments. The first speaker was Josephine Wama, the twin sister of Joseph Wama Jr. The second was Jasmine Wama, also their sister. We are open to questions and answers here. Obviously, within bounds. This is an ongoing investigation, and the topic is not everything else. The topic is what we have been discussing today.
District Attorney, the inquiry is reporting that he told police somehow that he was trying...
Mr. Cole, first of all, I want you to know how much I respect you as a journalist. I really do. But if you don't mind, I would like to go from one side of the room to the other so we make sure that every journalist gets covered. We will, of course, give you your opportunity, sir. I would never cut off, because that is what we usually do. Let's start on this side of the room. Are there any journalists who have questions? Yes, please. Can you identify yourself, please? Thank you.
The question is twofold. Number one, there's a report coming out that this individual, this shooter, told police that he was doing this or acting in service to help prevent future gun violence. Can you speak to that at all and the motive behind this shooting? Secondly, Sheriff Bilal mentioned social media posts that may have indicated that something was on the radar with this person before the shooting took place. Can you address what those posts are about? And Sheriff Bilal mentioned that you see something online, but how can that really be policed?
Okay, so that I understand, Ms. Kent, your second question is about social media. We're not going to comment on social media at this time because the investigation is ongoing, especially with reference to any thinking or any motive that may have been behind what we all recognize now was essentially a random shooting. It was a shooting of people that the defendant did not know, and it was a shooting of people who in many cases did not even know each other despite being from the same neighborhood. So given the ongoing nature, we're not going to talk about social media. I have to apologize. Can you ask me the first part of the question again?
The first part of the question, there's a report coming out now that this individual, the shooter, told investigators that this is part of a larger plan to help prevent gun violence in some capacity or shine a light on gun violence?
We're not going to comment on all the specifics of the investigation. Certainly, a number of news outlets have raised the possibility that there may be mental health issues. If there are mental health issues, those are normally addressed by expert examinations that are ordered by the court during the course of a prosecution. That has not been ordered yet, although I expect that it will be. Is there another question on this side? Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what was found during the search?
And Mr. Petrillo, can you identify your outlet?
Matt Petrillo, CBS News Philadelphia. Can you tell us what was found during the search of this home?
I'm going to defer, I do know, but I'm going to defer to ADA Pescator and ADA Wainwright to answer that, to the extent they can.
You mean the search of the defendant's home? There was a 380 caliber handgun. There was also ammunition, .223 ammunition. There were live rounds that matched the ammunition found at the scene. The 42. Actually, the main scene was 42 FCCs of .223, and then there were additional FCCs located at Mr. Wama's residence later on. In addition, there was a will that was dated June 23rd in the defendant's handwriting. In addition to, I'll just add that in addition to the AR-15 that the defendant had on him when he committed these atrocities, he had an additional handgun, a 9mm handgun that was actually a ghost gun, not traceable. That gun does not appear to have been fired during the rampage. Only the AR-15 was used, but he did have a second gun on him.
Could you describe what the bill said?
No. I don't have that information in front of me. This is.
Did it mention during this rampage out?
No, not to my knowledge.
Were there any other suspects apprehended, or will any more suspects be taken into custody?
There was initially there was a suspect that was taken into custody initially, and that suspect was released. And the circumstances surrounding that individual were, as it turned out, somewhat straightforward. That individual lost his brother, was one of the decedents. That individual had a gun on him that was legally owned and possessed. And when his brother was shot and he saw that his brother was shot, that individual fired 7 shots in the direction of the defendant.
Sir, can you? Sir, can you hold on? I will make sure that we get to talk to you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, I am now blessed with a list of people, and therefore it becomes a little bit easier to manage a series of questions. Mr. Cole, do you have a question?
Ms. Pescator, do you know what was in the will? You read the will?
Mr. Cole, I have not read the will. However, it's an ongoing investigation, and I wouldn't want to divulge what was actually in there, even if I did know.
The shooter, you talk about somebody who's licensed to carry who shoots 7 shots at the accused here. Does he hit him at all? Where
No,
did the shots come
he
from?
does not. He does not hit him. No, he was released. He has a permit to carry, and he had a lawfully owned firearm. He was not charged.
The accused here has a 2004 conviction carrying without a license. Does that have any impact here, any impact on him carrying these guns?
Well, he would legally not be able to have a firearm based on the fact that he does have a conviction. However, he would not be 6105 for I believe the conviction back in 2004 was only a misdemeanor. So he was not charged in this particular case with a felon not to have a firearm.
So he actually, while he's not licensed to carry,
right.
That's his violation here. Had he been licensed,
he wouldn't be eligible to get a license to carry it based on his previous conviction for that case.
What do you know about the AR-15? How long he had it, where it came from, where he got it?
Mr. Wainwright might be able to answer that.
I don't have that information yet at this time. I'm meeting with the detectives later on about that.
Okay. Do not fear. I will get to everyone, I promise. All right. Tasani Veshpongsa. I apologize if I got your name wrong. From AP, Associated Press.
Oh,
Do you have any questions or no?
no, I didn't.
No questions? Okay, thank you. Adam Fox from CBS 3. Adam Fox?
I'm a member. Okay? I think you're reading the list of the crew members.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just make sure I don't miss anybody. If you don't have a question, just feel free to say no questions. Kenyatta Henderson, Fox 29. No questions. All right, thank you. Bruce Ryan, NBC 10. Okay, very good. Well, in that case, let us go to Rosemary Connors of NBC 10.